Is the main character's dad ever in a game?
I don't remember a single game with the main character's dad.
Just 8 generations of deadbeats. And welcome back to another episode of the Games Gone By podcast. I'm your host, Adam Baskell, and joining me today, as always, the gaming expert and enthusiast, Austin. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Here to relive some childhood.
Excellent. And Jeff, joining us again. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. Yeah, excited to talk about these games that I think I remember. I don't know. What's real anymore?
It's been a number of years. So today we're going to talk about the first 2 Pokemon games, although we did play the LeafGreen and FireRed remakes. Thank God, because I think we were just looking at some of the screenshots and some of the quality of life changes, and it's like, I really think we made the right move there.
Yeah, definitely. It's how they look the whole time, right? Like, it's never been worse than this.
I've never seen anything else.
It's always been in color. I'll go ahead and say I played a lot of Red as a kid. I played a lot of Gold, and then that was it. I don't think I'd played a Pokemon game since like 2002 or 3. So it had truly been a long time since I touched these. What about you, Jeff?
So I had pretty much the same experience, right? Like I played the blue version initially, picked up the yellow at some point. I say I picked up. I begged my parents for the yellow version at some point, right? And then I did play Gen 2, silver and gold, but after that I got tired of them adding all the new Pokemon and was like, what? There's more than 250? I already hadn't come to terms with the new 100. Like, I'm done, y'all. So, Austin, does that track with your experience?
No, not at all. I'm definitely the odd one out here. Did you know they're up to like 900 Pokemon or something insane like that now?
Yeah, I thought once they added the anthropomorphic ice cream cone that we could all just collectively move on, but
does that include all the weird variants, or are there like 900 unique ones? Like, you know, there's like the dark Charizard and different Charizard or whatever?
No, I think it's like almost 900 unique variants. Now, not unique variants, I guess, but unique Pokemon.
Right.
And I could be wrong on that number. I know someone will be like, there's actually 756 or something like that. But it's a lot. I have played at least one of, I think, every single mainline game, and a lot of the spin-offs, including like the new Legends Arceus that came out recently. I've played pretty much everything Pokemon since it came out. Yellow was in fact my first game that I can like actually remember owning. I got it when I was like 4. Adam had to read most of it to me because I was dumb and couldn't read yet. Like this series has been a part of my life for a long time. But everything past Gen 5 is like completely forgettable for me. So this was refreshing.
You know what we didn't touch on? Pokemon isn't just a video game. It is a cultural phenomenon now.
It really is.
Now, when I was a kid, I was the perfect target of their, like, viral marketing isn't the right word. Anyway, Nintendo did a great job figuring out how to market all of this material to children. I got like a VHS tape from Toys R Us that was like, have you heard about Pokemon? Go play Pokemon. It was like a pre-release tape or whatever, and I was signed up for all of it, okay? I got on my dial-up internet and tried to track the Pikachu car around the West Coast or whatever. Yeah, go Google that. It's incredible.
I'm about to say, that does not sound familiar to me.
Yeah. So deep cut references here. Oh my God. I will find the video. I found it. You know what? We were talking about this months ago. I found that VHS video like on YouTube somewhere. I will send it to y'all later and put it in the show notes. It is incredible. Go ahead, Adam.
It is hard to just recall how crazy the marketing was. I remember KFC was doing a thing where you could get one of 4 plush dolls, and it was like, they're basically Beanie Babies, right? It was a seal, a Vulpix, a Zubat, and I can't remember the 4th one, but I had the seal and the Zubat, and I carried the seal with me freaking everywhere. Called it Sealy. When I caught this playthrough, I named my seal Sealy, you know, an homage.
Of course, nostalgic.
Yeah, there was the trading card game, there was the anime. I remember like getting to the Boys and Girls Club, and like if you didn't have homework, they gave you homework to do. So I would make up easier assignments I could get done quickly, so I could then go catch Pokemon before it was over. Like, I mean, it was everywhere as a kid.
Yeah, no, I think. I genuinely have no idea. Maybe this is just my own media blindness, but I cannot come up with another example of a product that just looked at every way to market to children and was like, what if we do all of them?
Yeah.
I mean, the one that we haven't even mentioned is probably the most popular, being just the anime adaptation of the game that was on like.
Is it an adaptation?
I mean, yeah, I think so. I mean, I look at it as an adaptation. And Yellow was designed to match the anime more than anything. Like,
yeah,
I believe the anime
adaptation
released, and then
of the adaptation.
Yellow was like the adaptation of the anime.
We're several layers deep.
Because you got the Pikachu at the beginning, and like, you know, you could get all the starters, and
There's a season for every like new region that's introduced with the games, right?
yes, yep. Each region has like 2 or 3 movies tied to it as well. So there's
Good
like
Lord.
the legendary Pokemon are tied to the movies.
Now, is it Ash throughout all of this? Does he have to beat like 17 Elite Fours? What's his life goal?
Yes, it is Ash through basically every single one of them. I think in the newest one, they've like
He like retired recently, right? Like
yeah,
Ash
like he
is
like
finally done.
ended his journey, and now there's like a new protagonist for like the newest Pokemon eras.
Right, he's like the 35-year-old, 10-year-old who's finally retired.
Exactly. He's the man who's never aged, but has been around for 35 years.
Good God.
But yeah, I remember those early anime episodes. Like I'll never forget the Team Rocket blasting off again. All of the like Pokemon original movie stuff is like, yeah, that is all very important childhood stuff for me.
Yeah, I feel like my personal timeline ended sometime after the first like feature film came out. I definitely got those like physical Pokeballs with like the gold Pokemon cards inside or whatever that came with the movie.
Yeah.
But I can't really remember anything after that. And I'm also assuming the movie came out after Gold and Silver.
I actually don't know.
Was that the weird one where with like Mewtwo and he was like a lab experiment? Is that the one?
Yes. That's the first movie. That's like the original Pokemon the movie is the one with Mewtwo, and like Mew is there, who I guess was like made up for the anime originally because Mew wasn't in the original game.
Y'all. Cool story time. I won a Mew. I had a Mew.
Oh yeah, because it was like giveaway codes or whatever, right?
It was like a contest or something. You had to like send your game cartridge in, and they had to physically add it to your game. So
wow.
Thank you, Nintendo Power. That's the best thing I got out of that magazine.
The diaries in the Pokemon Mansion mention Mew, but I don't know if that was added to LeafGreen.
I know that Mew is not catchable in Red and Blue.
That's
for
right.
Sure.
You had to send your game cartridge in.
So it was just a story point then.
Yeah.
But in Yellow, I think you could like glitch it or something to get a Mew. Like it was in the game's code, but like you couldn't get it naturally or something. I remember like watching videos about it, but I don't remember actually doing it ever.
Glitching your Game 1 games is also a great way to like destroy hundreds of hours of your childhood memories. But
oh my god.
I always remember the rumor that you could get strength and push this truck out the way and Mew would be underneath. And so who comes up with this shit?
Yeah. Early internet rumors, man. Okay, so with all that said, like I basically did all of the Pokemon stuff for the 2 years as a child and then nothing ever again. Austin, are you still into the trading card game?
Not really. I do have a binder still somewhere in my house of like all of my Pokemon cards in the like little sleeves that they have. I have all those somewhere.
I think my brother sold ours for drug money in college. So
that's actually that tracks a lot. That's probably a very common story, Adam.
I do not have any ultra rare like holographic Charizard that's worth thousands of dollars though, unfortunately.
The Pawn Stars guys told me it was worth a few $100, so you know.
So maybe where we'll start now is, since we've kind of been talking about the story of these games, which is almost a weird thing to even say, but there definitely is a through plot, and as bare as it is, Austin, would you say it's pretty similar in this one to like all the Pokemon games, or does this one do something? Okay.
Every single one of them.
Yeah, because this is truly, you wake up and your mom's like, hey, our town has 2 people in it, and the other guy has something for you this morning. And you walk out there, and then his grandson's being a dick, and you get a Pokemon. And that's how your journey starts. But it's like the simplicity of it is perfect because it is truly like, go collect all of the Pokemon and beat all the gym leaders. And then you have all these little sub stories that play out along the way, but it never overcomplicates itself because it knows it doesn't need to. And also, it was a Game Boy game. It probably couldn't if it wanted to.
The minimum number of everything. Austin, is the main character's dad ever in a game?
I don't believe so. I don't remember a single game with the main character's dad.
Just 8 generations of deadbeats.
In the true form of the anime protagonist, like no dad,
no father figure. You must set out on your own at the age of 10.
It really is crazy how, like, replaying these games, I'm reminded that every single Pokemon game follows the same structure of, like, set off on your quest, beat all the gyms, stop the evil team from, like, taking over the world using the power of Pokemon, beat the champion, and then, like, roll credits.
Is it always Team Rocket, or is it a different... is it always Team something?
It's always Team something. It's not always Team Rocket.
Okay. It's like a franchising type of deal?
Well, like, so in Gen 3 proper, like in Ruby Sapphire, they have Team Plasma and Team Aqua, which try and take over the world and, like, flood the entire planet with the, like, water legendary Pokemon, Kyogre. And then, like, the other one, they try and, like, destroy all the water on the planet or something. They're just, like, trying to terraform the planet with Pokemon. And then, like, Team Plasma, I think, is in Gen 5. And they're, like, trying to free all the Pokemon from trainers because they're, like, Pokemon are slaves. Free them. They need to be free.
Oh, dude, I was wondering how long it would take them to lean into the
Pokeslave.
Yeah, dude.
Gen 5. Gen 5's your game.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go get that one now.
They honestly, like, it's a game for kids, obviously, but they do kind of handle it rather interestingly. I think Gen 5 is one of the more compelling story ones.
Now, was that a Game Boy Advance, or was that DS?
That was DS.
Okay.
That was Pokemon Black and White.
So they're really getting to the point then where they can tell fuller stories. They're not trying to make sure their ints don't overflow in the middle of combat.
Exactly.
That's funny. All right, well, let's make it clear that we're going to bring it way back to just the Gen 1 remakes and probably never again talk anything about someone other than, like, Team Rocket or the original 150, right?
We'll see about that.
Well, okay. Full disclosure.
I have a lot of experience with this franchise.
That's true. Full disclosure, I'm a 150 purist. So don't come at me with your megalodons or whatever. No, it's a different movie.
Isn't that an ancient dinosaur?
Shark.
I don't know, man. There's Aerodactyl is basically an ancient dinosaur, right?
Oh, that's true.
Yeah,
so, like, that's 150. We're bringing it back.
Yeah,
we're keeping it on topic.
He's chill. I forgot about the Pokemon cloning until I got to Cinnabar again. But that's at the end of the story. Let's first talk about the most important choice. Who did you choose as your starter?
So I went with Bulbasaur because everyone shits on him, and I wanted to give him a little love. It's interesting because, we talk about the way the gyms play out based on your starter. Bulbasaur starts fast, can destroy the first 2. Then that man is just, like, useless for 4 straight gyms, and then he becomes good again toward the end. How did you feel with playing Charmander?
Charmander is great. Charmander's just the all-around winner. I mean, whatever. You can hate on him not being that useful in the first 2 gyms, but I'm completely convinced you could do a starter-only run depending on how much knowledge you have for grinding. But yeah, for the most part, Charmander is easily the coolest one, which is why I picked him every time. Have I done a run-through with Squirtle? Probably. Did I do a run-through with the plant frog thing? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Austin,
literally never.
Literally never. Austin, who was your, like, actual first choice, and then who'd you play through it this time?
So Charmander's always my first choice as well. I love Charmander. I think he's actually kind of bad playing through the game again. I'm looking at it and I'm like, he's really only good in Gym 4, but it's fine.
Absolute blasphemy. Like, you get out.
This time I ran with Squirtle and realized that he is, like, god tier and destroys everything all the time. He's only really bad in, like, 2 parts of the game, and everything else he just dominates.
Yeah.
We love Squirtle. I actually found out recently that the speed run for OG Red and Blue always starts with Squirtle because he's the best.
I mean, the only time I felt threatened in that game was with the rivals Blastoise, so like respect, but
And it's funny to me too, especially as a kid. You look at these three starters, and one you're like, oh, that gets to be a dragon. Oh, that one gets rocket launchers on its back. That one's a flower. They don't even seem like on the same level with the coolness factor.
I'm trying to remember if I saw the anime episodes first before I ever actually got the game. So I might have picked my starter just because I knew Charmander had like fire, like on his tail, right? Like you can see it.
I feel like every kid is just drawn to the like, ooh, that thing burns.
Right?
It's fire, and we're 12. It doesn't say no more.
Right. Like, obviously we want this thing.
That guy is a turtle, and again, flower. Like what? Like so.
The only way anybody picked Squirtle as a kid is if they saw the anime episode with the Squirtle Squad and all the cool sunglasses.
I was
Then
just
everybody's
thinking that.
Squirtle's the best.
I forgot he had a gang.
Yeah, dude, the Squirtle Squad, man.
Dude, that anime went nutso sometimes. It also found a way to make like 17 hours of content for a 12-minute dungeon. So as far as using the starters, though, in the gyms, did you guys find any of the gyms like particularly challenging aside from your starter? Like once mine started to lose its effectiveness, it became like, all right, I got to find a fire Pokemon for the grass gym. Oh, this game doesn't have any. Like...
It's got one.
Yeah, I found a patch of grass with some Vulpix, and I guess in red it would have been Growlithe. But other than that, man, you're just screwed on the fire front for most of this game.
I find the game's balancing in general to be kind of whack.
Balance is a strong word.
Yeah, that's probably a good way to put it. There's just a lot of times when I feel like the game doesn't give you the Pokemon that you need to deal with the situation. And like sometimes it does. Like there's the Diglett Cave that will give you a ground type to deal with Lieutenant Surge, and like there's a bunch of grass Pokemon at the beginning to help you deal with Brock and Misty. It just feels like there's like one option, and if you don't pick that option, you're kind of screwed for most of the game.
It does feel surprisingly light that given there's 150, right? Like that always kind of threw me off.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just like an artifact of them, like, you know, handwriting it with assembly code or whatever for the first game, but it does feel, it feels a little constricted for the volume of options you're supposed to have, right? And for whatever reason, like the majority of the like bad guy trainers, like the opponent trainers you fight in the game, are just obsessed with maybe like 6 Pokemon. Like,
oh my god, they all have the same thing.
the sheer number of like Ekans and Coughings like in my wake, like that I have destroyed.
What's even funnier about that is I feel like you can't find those Pokemon in the wild anywhere.
Yeah,
like,
it's
they're just so rare to find any of those things. But every trainer has one.
It's because they took them all. There's none left.
That's true. Single-handedly wiped out the species.
Yeah, so I do wonder if like some of that came from just the restrictions of making this game originally, because like I don't know, if I was there to sit down and design a fun Pokemon game, there would be a much larger variety in the battles. But I guess the design was more about like how do we trick the kids into playing it over and over again until they finish the 150
Right.
Pokedex. It's all about like psyching you into that hook, I guess.
I mean, they sold 2 copies of the same game, so off the bat it was.
Oh man,
you know.
we haven't even got to that. Yeah, don't talk about my shame.
Well, even outside of just not having a ton of variety, I found that switching out your Pokemon was such a struggle because it required so much grinding, because every wild Pokemon is so underleveled compared to you whenever you get there. Like every area, I'm like 7 levels above the wild Pokemon. So it's like, all right, time to grind out the new wild Pokemon that I just captured.
Yeah, this game has a sort of designed struggle where on one hand they really want you to buy into their type system and countering system, and on the other hand, for whatever reason, they want to make acquiring new Pokemon like as tedious as possible. You have to like go off into some random corner and then you have to capture exactly the right thing, hope it's at the right level, you know, hope you haven't caught something that's too strong so it doesn't even have the moveset you want, and then, you know, raise it and grind it out up the levels, which is why to play this game and have fun, you just shouldn't do that, all right? Catch a Pikachu in the Viridian Forest, go get yourself an Abra after Cerulean City, and just, you know, sleep the rest of the game.
With that being said, I did basically do what you're talking about. I ran with like my original 6 that I got like at Brock's gym and just ran with that for pretty much the rest of the game. Only changing out like twice.
Austin, did you take Butterfree to the Elite Four?
I did not.
Okay.
That is one of the two that I switched out. I did run with Butterfree until probably Gym 4, though.
Oh, that is a long time. He's so good. You know, you get that sleep powder and you get the confusion early with him. He's like this great little buddy for like the first 2 or 3 gyms, and then you put him away into the PC to never be seen again. So,
never to be seen again.
I do it every time.
He rocks at the beginning, and then once I got a Growlithe and a Jolteon, I was like, all right, bye Butterfree, you have to leave.
He's the only guy who could put Abra to sleep long enough so I can throw the ball at him and catch him, and once I have that, Butterfree is dead to me. Who? What about Bugs?
I was not going to go through the struggle of trying to trade a Kadabra to get an Alakazam in the year 2024, so I gave up on the Abra. Said no thanks.
Well, Kadabra was strong enough though, so
that is fair. That's fair.
I use him a good bit. I think I'd echo you guys' sentiments, and I play games in the most stubborn way. So even though I could feel that what I was doing was not going to work, I just kept fucking doing it. So I swapped out Pokemon so many times, and it really is an issue because I think as you're going through the early parts of the game, it's fun to just catch every new thing you see. But then you start to realize 2 things. A, I'm not getting all 150, so what am I even doing? And 2, I'm not going to be able to use most of these, even if I wanted to, because A, some are just worse. Some Pokemon are just worse than other ones. And then 2, some of their movesets are ass. And then 3, you got to pour so much experience into it.
Yeah.
Like, if it wasn't for the Versus Seeker, I don't think I would have ever swapped anyone out of my party. But I would get obsessed with, like, okay, fuck this one Pokemon I have. I want Vulpix now. Let's put the EXP share on him and run in circles around this one part of Bicycle Road and just fight these same 3 guys over and over, right?
Yeah, the talk about a feature that made this game a bit easier. Especially early on, like, because it's some of the only times I swapped up my team was like right after Cerulean or whatever, and you've got that bridge and that road to Bill's house that is just littered with trainers. You just walk around with a Versus Seeker and you can fight them like 3 times and raise half a new team if you want to. Plus, like, lower level, less experience. So.
How would you ever even swap out Pokemon in the original games without the Versus Seeker?
You had a lot more free time as a child, is what it was, Austin.
That is a good point. That is a good point.
One of the first NPCs you talk to in the game, provided you're talking to them, is like, oh yeah, one of the best way to train a new Pokemon is just to make it your first one and pull it back immediately, which is definitely, a strategy I utilized until I got the EXP share. But of course, what sucks about that is A, it's just a tedious action, but B, you give up a free hit at the start of every fight. So it's like,
also true. It's like, this is not optimal. I want to play this optimally.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks get pulled into this trap of like, oh, I've got 6 slots and they want me to set up this cool type system, so I should have like 6 Pokemon that can cover all the types. But what you really need is 2 heavy hitters that just steamroll everything. Because once you're 10 levels above the opponent, it doesn't freaking matter anymore.
Yeah, but then why aren't you just playing like cookie clicker idle game at that point? Like, I just
because you're 8 and the internet barely exists. So
one of my coworkers, like, I showed him all this and he beat it in like 2 days. He's like, yeah, I literally just use Charizard for everything.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
But why? Why are you playing a game where all you're doing is just mashing A and watching TV? Like, I know he wasn't looking at his damn phone while he was playing it.
Pokemon, the original idle game. But yeah.
It is funny that I realized how much of my like strategy playing this game this time around did not differ from my strategy playing as a child. Like, I ran with almost the exact same party that I ran with as a kid. I even like tried to mix it up and was just like, I can't. Like,
right.
This is just ingrained in me.
It ruins the nostalgia vibes. You're like, I can't use a freaking Sandshrew. I didn't use the Sandrat last time. No.
Right. I never got a Diglett and trained it and did anything with it. Come on now.
What's that nonsense? Geodude all the way. So.
Instead, I need to grind out Lieutenant Surge using like Mankey with Dig and like do that. So yeah, this is the best way to do this battle.
Meanwhile, Sandshrew is just immune to every attack in that gym.
Right, exactly. Like, I should have just grabbed a Diglett or a Sandshrew, but no.
I was going to say, I spent all this time talking about how I didn't change anything. Main Key is new to me. I had never caught and really played with a fighting type before, which is a nice change of pace. I guess if I switched exactly one Pokemon, which balanced the right level of nostalgia and newness to me, because it was fun running around with a fighting type, because I did not realize that they will just destroy both like all the rock types and the normal types, which makes like the early part of the game very easy. You just karate chop everything. It's glorious.
Yeah, because everything's normal.
Yeah.
Mankey is like super necessary when playing yellow because you have Pikachu and that's your only thing that you have. So going up against Brock is like, I could have a Caterpie, I guess, or I could use this cool like monkey that karate chops things. I want that instead.
You mean you can't just believe in your Pikachu enough and have it take down the Onix? That's not how that works.
It didn't work for me as a kid playing yellow, that's for sure.
The anime lied to me? What? So
I definitely went far away from how I played it as a kid, only to find out that there was no good reason to. Unfortunately, because every time I came across a gym, maybe after the first couple, I was like, all right, I really want to build like a party for this gym that wins through like some sort of strategy instead of just sheer levels. But then sometimes it really wasn't much of an option. Like when it came to Sabrina, my thought was, okay, psychics are weak to bug for some reason. Let me go find some bugs. Well, every fucking bug is also poison, which is weak to psychic. So that didn't do anything for me.
There's something about Sabrina's gym specifically that feels broken in the game's design.
Yeah, and then it's like, oh, ghost? Oh, all the ghosts are poison too. What is this game doing to me? Like,
it really does feel like a hard like difficulty check. And I've always found it super weird that there's like a fighting gym in Saffron that you could get like a Hitmonchan or Hitmonlee. It makes it feel like, oh, I should probably bring this into the gym battle. And then it just gets absolutely rocked by psychic types. So it's like, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
I was going to say, here's this super cool fighting Pokemon. If you take it next door, you can watch it die all day.
Just instantly die.
There's a reason that dojo is there, but it is not a gym. Okay, that's how second class they are, and they just want you to know.
If you talk to the trainers in Sabrina after you beat them, one of them even mentions like, oh, yeah, they were here, and we came in and showed them that their Pokemon suck, and we took over. So they truly just brought in a bunch of psychic Pokemon and took over the gym. Like
that's awesome. I guess I didn't talk to them enough to hear that. That's awesome.
They're basically like, yeah, we put them in their place, and now they just dance around in goofy white outfits and use shitty Pokemon. So,
and I really do like how much this game has like a lot of fun flavor text and like fun world building things. Like there's a lot of moments talking to different trainers or different people in the world that like describe other parts of the world, or like, oh, I saw this thing when I was in the Safari Zone, which are like a completely different part of the world. And I like how it feels pretty connected. Like this whole globe feels like everybody's kind of traveled around and like explored the world a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does actually have a good amount of liveliness to it, considering just how simple it is, right? It's not like all these towns are overwhelmingly huge or that there's a ton of NPCs, but there is a lot of quality flavor text that someone clearly actually put effort into. But I don't have the patience to click A again after winning a battle, so I don't read half of it.
Well, I mean, of course not. But when you do read it, it's like, oh, that's nice, that's cute. Like I like that little moment.
I like all the stuff going on with the Sylph Company in was that Saffron or Viridian? I can't remember which one.
Saffron. I mean, I guess they're kind of in both, because in Viridian, Team Rocket takes over the casino, and they have like the Sylph Scope, so they've like stolen something from the Sylph Company.
Yeah, that's right. So it's just cool that there's like this corporation behind all the stuff that's sold in the world.
Yeah, it is the whole Kanto region like a company region. Like there's just the one company.
Right.
That's why.
Like
that's why clones.
Just like ultra capitalism. Like
I don't understand how all of that works in regards to. So what? There's just separate regions on this planet with different Pokemon, and they never fly away from where they were.
Well, in future games they do, but in these early games, no, they all stay in their spots.
Okay, so they mix them up later.
Yeah, definitely.
My favorite feature of Gen 2 was being able to go back to the Gen 1 region, Kanto. After you beat the Gen 2 Elite Four, you can go over and fight like yourself, basically, like your past self.
Yeah, Gen 2 was so cool.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever knew that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, like you can literally go back and you just basically play all of Kanto.
Like all the gyms and everything?
All the gyms, yeah. There's like some new trainers in certain gyms, but and like some new gym leaders, but like yeah, you basically just go through the whole region again.
Damn, so they just put like 2 whole games on Gold and Silver.
Yeah.
Well, I had no
Fun
idea.
fact: Satoru Iwata, the president of Nintendo for a long time, recently passed away. Actually coded that entire Kanto region like basically by himself. Like he was like, I want this in there and I'm going to make it happen.
That's fair.
And he basically did the entire thing himself.
Because it's like a whole second game, a bit of a mini game, but like still they had.
Yeah, it's definitely a streamlined version of Kanto, but it was really cool to see, and these remakes kind of kept the flavor of like the expansive world that Gen 2 had kind of and Gen 3 kind of brings in too. I don't remember if it was that well fleshed out in the original games, like if the flavor text was as inclusive of the whole region.
I could not tell you, and I certainly couldn't tell you the difference between like Generation 2's Kanto and like the original or the remakes. I have forgotten all of those specific details. Who knows? But speaking of regions in the map, though, is it? So I was trying to think about this the other day. We were talking about the flexibility and what order you do the trainers in, or the gyms in, rather. After you beat the 3rd gym, could you do them in any order after that? Do we know?
Yeah, we saw a thread on Reddit where someone else calculated the 57 permutations or whatever. And you can do 4, 5, 6, and 7 in any order, as it turns out.
Okay.
Which is crazy because I don't think any other Pokemon game lets you do that. Like I don't know about Gen 2 for sure. Gen 2 might have some flexibility, but like Gen 3 and beyond, I don't think they let you mix up gyms like that. Or at least I've never seen it. I feel like it becomes a lot more streamlined in the future games.
Yeah, it was really funny to me to think about how I could have went and got Surf and then flown back to Pallet Town and then swam down to Cinnabar Island, and I could have done like the fire gym immediately, like after the grass gym or whatever. But it's like, what? I realize that's interesting, right? It's flexible, it's more open worldy, but like, who would ever do that? Like,
well, the levels would make it very hard to actually do that too.
Also, yes, you would just get
it's
destroyed by Blade. So it's like, is it flexible?
There's a pretty natural like. You can't do that because the levels won't allow you, but if you want to try, you can, which feels very old school RPG to me, where it's like the things that prevent you from progressing to certain areas is not that you can't go there because there's an invisible wall or something, but it's literally like, this thing is just too strong for you. You need to train.
Yeah.
Like,
you're right.
Which I like. I appreciate that. I think that's a cool thing. That being said, I think I did it in the like natural order, but...
Yeah, there's also just a certain satisfaction to doing them in exactly the right order. I don't know why. That's just the way my ADD brain works. It's like, no, you have to do 5, then 6.
Adam, you were saying that, and maybe I got this mixed up, is Koga first or Sabrina first?
I do think... Oh, God, we looked at this. I'm pretty sure Koga is technically 5.
Koga is technically 6.
It was 5.
But a lot of people end up doing Sabrina second because as we've discussed, her psychics are just a nightmare compared to like the guy whose gym is right next to a cave full of Pokemon that owns him. So
right, I did because this time around I did Sabrina then Koga, but back as a child I definitely remember doing Koga then Sabrina, and always being confused that they didn't show up right on the like badge screen. I was like, wait a second.
I do remember having to do Sabrina's gym several times, but look, you're just one good flamethrower away from winning that gym. You just got to have a right level Charizard. Problem solved.
Yeah, too bad nothing at that level gets flamethrower. That is not Charizard.
So it
the
sounds
fire
like
ones do if you get... Well, I think Vulpix learned it naturally. Growlithe, you might need the TM from the casino.
Growlithe learns flamethrower at level 52. I found that out. I was like, what is this? I had to get the TM from the casino, which meant I had to grind out like a bunch of freaking credits because I didn't have enough money to just buy them all.
Trash. Vulpix got it way sooner. And talking about Vulpix kind of reminds me of just, we were talking about all the things we didn't really know as kids. And part of that is I didn't really know about stabs. I might have kind of figured them out inherently. So that same type attack bonus, right? So basically, if a water Pokemon uses a water move, it does more damage. Most of the time, you're using same types anyway, kind of just naturally. So it's probably not a huge deal if you don't understand that. But it definitely made my Hitmonchan experiment a total fucking disaster. And that was hours of my life I'll never get back.
God, this game does that so often, though. It like presents options to you that look really cool, and you feel like you can do this thing, and you'll be clever, and it'll be fun. But actually, no, it was a giant waste of your time. Thanks for playing. Go back to fishing for a Krabby or whatever, so someone can use Surf and beat the one gym for you. You know.
I put a Magikarp in the daycare right after catching it in Vermilion, and then completely forgot about it. And went back to it after, like, I beat the Elite Four, and it had grown, like, 26 levels and was, like, ready to evolve into a Gyarados. And I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot you were in here.
I'm so disappointed it wasn't level 100.
Does the daycare screw up? Like, did you just have a Gyarados that knew nothing but Splash, or does it let you learn that?
I didn't actually take it out, so I don't know. I just saw, like, it's grown by 26 levels. You don't have room for it. And I was not about to go to the PC to, like, make room for my level, like, 31 Magikarp.
I did the Magikarp grind immediately, and Gyarados ended up being with me till the very end. He has a ton of HP. He gets Surf. He has Bite. He can't fly in this one anymore. I think he may have been able to originally.
I feel like that was a bug in Gen 1, but...
because they're like, he's a dragon, but he's not actually. It's flying in water.
Right.
Such good times. A Pokemon with Fly, Surf, and Strength.
But then why is he flying and you can't teach him fly? Maybe make him dragon in water, but it's just dragon's too powerful. I don't know. I'm sure they have their reasons.
There's definitely some like weird typings where it's like dragon is like super useful against Lance, but like good luck getting a dragon unless you get the Dragonair or the Dratini from the casino. Like other than that, there's just no way to get one.
That might be the only place.
Yeah, you got to go bust up the gambling ring and then gamble yourself for ages to get the best Pokemon.
It's just so long.
Which, at least with the Versus Seeker now, it makes more sense to just buy the coins, and you get so much money from trainers.
Sure.
But originally, not much of an option.
Versus Seeker and the Amulet coin, I was a wash in cash. Like, I went into that Elite Four fight with 30 full restores. So
okay, I'm going to sound really stupid here. What's the Amulet coin? Did I miss that?
Oh, man, it's the best holdable Pokemon item in the game.
I must have missed it.
So I have no idea where I got it. I think you know what? You didn't even catch... Yeah, it's one of the OKs. Did you even get 60 Pokemon, Austin?
I did not get... I got 53 Pokemon.
I think it's the reward. You get 60 Pokemon. You get the Amulet coin. It doubles trainer payouts. So when you win a fight...
Man.
Yeah, so Blaine gave me 12 grand. So...
Jesus Christ. And the crazy thing is, I was catching pretty much everything I encountered. Like, I wasn't not catching the things I encountered. I think the thing is, I just ran with the same party for so long that, like...
You didn't evolve anything, is probably where you're counting.
Right, that's exactly it. Like, I ran with my, like, basic 6 from the beginning, evolved those, and, like, that's all the Pokemon I got. But I caught, like, every wild thing I found. Yeah. I just didn't evolve anything, so my Pokedex never grew in size dramatically.
I think my trading evolutions were doing a good bit of that lifting for me. So
yeah, definitely wasn't doing all that either. So
it's not hard, man.
I don't think I even touched Eevee in this playthrough. And part of it was, I think, by the time I got there, like as a kid, you're like, oh, that's cool. I can turn it into one of these 3 things. Yeah, that all just suck. And especially compared to like anything you might have already. And it's kind of like 2/3 through the game. And that's what I was going to say earlier is like, I think the game does a decent job providing Pokemon that you could use to beat gyms nearby, but you got to train it up. And that's such a pain in the ass.
Yeah, it really is.
It's the original... Well, Pokemon is my original grinding experience. I mean, because I was literally 8, right? But also just like, it's got to be one of the most iconic grind-heavy games out there, right? Like, what else do you grind except World of Warcraft, you know?
Yeah, especially for how universal Pokemon is and how it's so many people's introduction to like the sort of generic JRPG style of game design. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that was most people's first grinding experience if they were old enough.
So y'all are much more experienced in JRPGs than me. Is it a good JRPG for its time? I
think in some ways, yeah. It's weird because it's a party RPG that you only ever use one at a time, which I can't think of any other JRPG that functions that way. So that in itself is a very interesting thing. I mean, if you go back and play like an old Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest, it's probably pretty similar as far as you're going all around the map and you're recruiting new party members as opposed to capturing Pokemon. But a lot of it is also, there's a lot of elemental weaknesses and stuff in those kind of early games. So the combat is actually pretty similar as far as like use the move that the thing is weak against. I think it holds up reasonably well though, especially these remakes adding some of those quality of life changes. It maybe isn't something I would say, yes, you should definitely sit down and play like all of Pokemon Red again in your free time. But what I noticed is that I had been playing these shitty mobile games for like a year, and I entirely stopped playing them when I got this emulator.
Oh, like, that is an interesting line of thought. The fact that
I recommend to everyone to download Delta and get rid of every fucking shitty mobile game on your phone. That's my recommendation.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about how the whole reason we're doing this is because the EU forced Apple to allow like, emulators on iPhones, and now the most popular US phone is also, like the most popular gaming platform, and everything Nintendo has ever made is better than any mobile game you can think of. So.
Dude, it's really true.
It really is, and it was a really great time playing it on the emulator. It felt pretty natural to do so. Like it felt like playing it back on the Game Boy, and the ability to speed up the game if you so chose, like I did, was really helpful to get through it at a pace that felt a little more rapid.
Pokemon has the perfect number of buttons for an emulator. You know what I mean? Like, you don't even have to use the L and R triggers for anything, which I don't think would feel great, especially if you're trying to use them at the same time as other buttons on the emulator. But being like just a turn-based kind of grindy collect-a-thon RPG, it was perfect for the control setup.
Yeah, it probably helps that this game was made before L and R were buttons on it.
Right.
So, I mean, I do miss my physical buttons, right? Like that's the one element of nostalgia I don't get from playing it on the modern piece of glass, phones. But otherwise, yes, it felt incredibly natural. Like I'm sitting here playing it like, oh, yeah, I would play games on my phone all the time if they were just Nintendo quality games. So
instead of pop-ups for buy $1,000 worth of power gems again,
again.
I was ragging on Pokemon for being like, let's market to children in every way possible. But you know what? Those days were still better than the crap they have now.
True.
But back to the JRPG question, though, I do think it holds up pretty well as far as JRPG standards go. It is clearly designed at a younger audience, right? It's definitely supposed to be like baby's first RPG, but I think it does that pretty well. Like it does baby's first RPG in a strong way that would make people interested in the genre. I mean, it's probably a reason that I'm such a big fan of JRPGs to this day, is growing up playing early Pokemon games. So I think it does that really well, and it still holds up well and feels like it could be that for a new generation if the Pokemon games of today aren't so lame. It would be great if they just like re-released Red and Yellow again, or Red and Blue again in like a new format, and let kids grow up on Red and Blue again. That's what we really need.
Yeah, that is an interesting question. So the 3D games, are the 3D games just bad? Like that's the impression I've gotten, is that those are just bad.
I don't like them, and I think a large reason for that is, we haven't really talked about difficulty of this game, and if we've really felt like it's difficult. I felt like there were a couple times where I hit a wall where I was like, okay, I have to grind, or I have to like choose my types better, or like add a TM that will do a type advantage move. Like I had to think at times. In every game past like Gen 5, I feel like that's just not a thing. And a big part of that is that they give you like a universal EXP share. So every Pokemon will level up at the same time, and will like they all get experience, like most modern RPGs, right? Most modern RPGs will level up all of your characters at once. Like there's not a lot of that, like you play this one character and it gains experience, but all your like standby characters gain no experience. I feel like that doesn't really happen anymore. But the newer Pokemon games don't feel designed with that like universal EXP share in mind, and they just all feel like a walk in the park. Like after the first gym, it's just like you speed through the rest of the game without ever like losing a single Pokemon. It's crazy. Like,
so wait, even the ones you have in storage are getting experience?
Well, no, and I mean it's just your
Just your
party,
6.
but
Okay,
it's like
okay.
it's your entire 6 though are getting experience, for every battle, and it's just like natural, which would prevent the grinding elements that we were complaining about. But the problem is that like none of the trainers feel like they're designed with this in mind, so all their Pokemon are like lower level than all of yours.
Wow.
So it just feels like you're constantly ahead of everything that you're fighting. Like when I got to the Elite Four in FireRed and everything was like 10 levels above me, I was like, oh my god, I'm so screwed.
Yeah, that's wild. So let's talk about those hard stat checks, right? Like I feel, and you guys chime in here too, I feel like there's only 3 in the entire game, and it is literally individual Pokemon. It's Misty's Starmie.
Yep.
It's Sabrina's. Does she have an Alakazam?
Yeah, she has an Alakazam.
And then I guess it's the entire Elite Four.
I would say it's the entire Elite Four, because that first moment when I walked into Lorelei and saw like a level 54 Dugong or whatever, I was like, oh my god. Like I am not prepared for this.
The only other ones would be your rival fights will sometimes have a really high Charizard or, a starter Pokemon. But those fights are technically optional, right?
I never lost one. I don't know what happens when you lose.
I'm not actually sure because I'd always restart if it headed that way. 'Cause I was too stubborn to let a guy named Gary beat me. So
I also never lost those, I think. And the reason why I think is because the rival fight does feel like one of the most balanced fights in the game.
He's the most interesting opponent by far.
Yeah, like having a very diverse party forces you to have a diverse party, and your party, at least I always felt like my party was always a great matchup for his. Like I always had the right thing to counter something that he had. And I think it's because the game like is intentionally funneling you into that.
Yeah. I mean, I will say I feel like I had a bit easier time than y'all. Because I heard all of your complaining about the Elite Four, so I was like, right, okay, I need to pivot hard into my strategy, and my strategy was Charizard, Alakazam, and Raichu just dominates the entire game. Also, you were talking about like your level 54 Dugong, and it's like that came out, and to me, I was just like, oh, Raichu is currently salivating. Like let him at this dumb ice water party, and let's see if we can sweep the floor.
And I had that, right? I had that with my Jolteon. I had Jolteon out there to do the same thing. But the problem is Jolteon is a Pokemon that doesn't get any freaking electric moves until level like 50-something.
And this brings us back to that, like,
Eevee
oh,
sucks.
it's flexible.
Eevee sucks. Eevee's ass. It really is unfortunate.
Yeah, it brings us back to like the game pretends like it's flexible and you can do different stuff and have strategies, but actually you should have picked up that Pikachu in the Viridian Forest and been training him the whole time. And
I never found that Pikachu in Viridian Forest.
You got to search, man. I didn't know when I was a kid, and then I played the remakes and was like, holy shit, he's just there the whole time, and I never leave that
He's
forest.
just hanging out?
Yeah, I never leave that forest without getting a Pikachu now. So
I think that Dugong is when I released my Hitmonchan because basically, so he's got Lightning Punch. And I'm like, all right, this is the move. And it says it's super effective, but I did like a third of its health. And then I just did his like only fighting move, Skyward Uppercut, that I had. And it just killed the rest of it. And I was like, what's the fucking point of this? And it's because the special attack is what influences his 3 elemental punches, but he barely has any special attack. So it just doesn't do as much damage as plus he's the same type fighting and he has a ton of attack. It's like no thought went into this at all.
yeah. And that, it really is the stat based and the type based game, and it wants to pretend like you have options, but you don't. Like, look, you can put Blizzard on Gengar or whatever, but that's like never really gonna matter. You should just put it on an ice type or put Hydro Pump on your Blastoise.
Right, but you can only find an ice type at Gym 7, and then you have to grind out to train it to be capable of handling everything else, because there's nowhere else in the game to find an ice type.
Which is why it all comes back to you have to catch an Abra and leave him at the trainer.
It really is just get an Abra, whether from the casino or catch it. Either way, just make sure you have an Abra.
Well, I think that's where the legendary birds come in. Is they're like people are gonna have just huge holes in their party by the end. Let's give them a 50 of the like 3 major elements and hope that helps.
What do you mean give them? I threw 40 Ultra Balls at that stupid bird.
I will say, it took a really long time throwing those fucking balls, and that was annoying. But the dungeons themselves, in my head, I remember thinking like, oh god, isn't it like such a slog to get there? It's really not.
Yeah, they're all pretty quick. And this one does a completely new dungeon for Moltres.
Oh yeah, isn't he just on the side of the road?
Yeah.
To the Elite Four and the normal one?
He's just in Victory Road in the original game. He's just hanging out. Like, what's up? How's it going?
This is why I didn't find Moltres last night. Okay. I was like, I wonder.
Yeah. This game gives you like a whole new region to like go explore. The 1, 2, 3 island thing.
Oh, is he in Mount Ember or whatever?
Yeah. Did the name Mount Ember not give it away?
I mean, it seemed relevant, but I was like, this is all new. There's nothing here. Why would I care? So,
Yeah.
Why would I care? Yeah, it's just Moltres. It's just him hanging out.
Is it Blaine's gym afterwards? That guy shows up and is just like, "Hey, want to take a detour?"
yeah, that's right.
I should not have said yes. What a waste of time. I mean, it was kind of interesting. It does let you get Moltres, but it was also just, it was weird. It was like they just added extra parts in the game because they didn't think it was long enough. I don't know. It didn't, to me, that whole 1, 2, 3 does not need to exist.
It like could be a fun little side story, but I just don't think it like does enough interesting things to be worth it.
So
it's just kind of like, oh yeah, this is a thing that I did.
It's a tie-in to Gen 2 to Johto. Did you guys load up the game after beating the Elite Four?
Very briefly.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I did a little bit.
So Oak is all like, hey, there's whole new Pokemon that have never been seen here before. Go to the islands and catch them.
Oh, is that Gen 2 stuff?
Yeah, it's like Gen 2 Pokemon.
You can only do that if you've caught 60 Pokemon, and I didn't, so that didn't count for me.
Gotcha.
All right, we're starting to find out which among us like played this game mildly well. And
Austin got like a 40% on the test.
I was the first one to beat the Elite Four, thank you.
Oh man,
I just went the speedrun route, that's all.
That's fair. I do really appreciate playing the remade versions though over Gen 1. I feel like I have to imagine Gen 1 just has all these same problems we're talking about, and they're like even worse.
Oh god, I can't even imagine.
And I think so. One of the things about the Elite Four is I think they are intended for you to grind them, right? Because how else are you going to level up Pokemon to actually like beat them all, right? Like you're just supposed to play that Elite Four fight over and over
Right, like
again.
you're just supposed to run it.
Spend all your money at the store right there at the front so that you don't lose it when you die.
And that's what I was about to say that's what I was about to say was my problem is that I didn't have enough money because I didn't have your fancy amulet coins. So I didn't have enough money to be constantly buying more full restores and more like revives.
But dude, I feel like I had 200 grand before I got the amulet coin. Like, what did you spend your money on?
I bought coins for TMs in the casino because none of my Pokemon could learn any goddamn moves.
What did you spend your money on? Gambling. I have so many gambling debts.
Listen, I needed moves for my Pokemon. None of the Pokemon I got learned any of their type moves until like level 50 plus.
See, this is the game just trying to teach you life lessons there, you know? Like,
yeah, don't gamble. The last time I went gamble, I put $5 on a slot machine, lost it, and then said, all right, I'm leaving. Goodbye.
stick around.
And that's why there's still a roof over your head. So good.
Yep. I did not listen to that in Pokemon, though. In Pokemon, I was just like, drop all my money on credits.
Well, speaking of moves, Austin, I'm curious, since you've played more of these, is it locked to 4 moves like all the games?
Yes.
Okay.
Every single one is locked to 4 moves.
I always thought that may have been a technical limitation in the original because it was just like the memory of storing more moves than that for all these different Pokemon. But it just as easily could have been a design choice, too. I mean, I truly don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows in the original? I mean, it's clearly a design choice by like Gen 7 or 8, and they're still doing it. But I think, and that's one of the biggest problems that Pokemon Company has had, and why people have kind of gotten tired of Pokemon games, I think, is that they have just refused to like evolve their structure at all. Like when I tell you that playing this game feels exactly like playing the Pokemon game that came out in like 2022 or whatever. Like, it feels almost exactly the same.
Which is why do you need 700 new variants of different colored deer? Just go play the original 150. You don't need anything else.
The purist returns. I do think the most interesting thing Pokemon has done in a while was the Pokemon Legends game, which has a much more like open world design where it's like you walk around and you just throw throw Pokeballs at wild Pokemon like as the like it's all in like a 3D space. There's no like here we're gonna jump into a separate screen for a battle. It's like you actually have to like stealth up to Pokemon and like throw a ball at it to catch it, and then you can throw out a Pokemon to fight it to weaken it, or you could like stealth throw to like kind of come up behind it and get like a back throw bonus or whatever. So it's like they have tried to mix it up in some of the side games, but in the mainline series, it's all just been the exact same thing for the last 20 years.
It sounds like Safari Zone and Pokemon Go, like mixed together.
Yeah.
Kinda, but it's more interesting than that, I promise. I really do recommend Legends Arceus, if nothing else, just to see like the one different thing that's happened in Pokemon in the last 20 years.
Do you think they've gotten less experimental with the format over time? Because like the other Pokemon video game I played a lot as a child was Pokemon Stadium, the N64 game that
I love Stadium.
Oh man, you would take your game cartridge, you would slide it into the special accessory for that was built pretty much just for this game, right? Attach it to your N64 controller and load your personal Pokemon onto the N64 game to see them in 3D battle glory. And that was just the coolest thing on the planet. And I was like searching around for like, oh, is there an equivalent for like the modern Pokemon games? And the answer is no. So like for all this effort, and I feel like wish that Nintendo had for you to like buy one game and have that be the entry into like the whole franchise and you could move them all around, it just turns out to be very impractical, or like it fell down after the initial run. I don't know.
They've definitely been trying some things. It's not to say that they haven't tried anything. Like I think Legends Arceus is an interesting thing that they tried. They also had this like Pokemon Sleep game that they released on mobile recently. So not all their experimentation is a win. They've been trying things. It's not always a win. And they did even do like, I mean, Pokemon Go was really big, and I still have played Pokemon Go in the last like year or two, and it's still a pretty fun and interesting experiment for Pokemon. But they just haven't been able to do that with their main series, and I'm not sure what it is. I'm not sure if they just are scared to do something new. I mean, they keep selling, right? I mean, people keep buying them, so maybe they're just like, why fix what's not broken? Like everyone complains about it, but like people are still gonna buy it. So
yeah, I was Googling if you could take a Pokemon from FireRed and bring it all the way to the latest generation, and I think the answer is yes. Possibly.
I do believe it is yes.
But
I do believe it is yes.
Okay, so it is yes, but it is just so hard to do, and I don't know if it's just a practicality of like building and launching a product, right, that you want people to actually buy and play, and so that's why it's not like easier to do. But that was just like the biggest appeal, right? Like you wanted people to be a bit immersed in like, oh, they have an actual like pocket monster. It's like Tamagotchi, but like way, way farther than that, right? But like, I don't know, the practicality of the games doesn't bring that out for me. It's like, I would play FireRed and maybe I'll play the Gen 2 remake someday, but I am never going to go through the hoops of getting Charizard into Generation 8 or whatever.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of the like mainline Pokemon you can catch in those later generations. Like they do show up in later games. It's not like the original 150 or isolated specifically to Gen 1. Like you can catch a Pidgey in Gen 8 just in the wild. Like those things are still there. They mix in a lot of the Pokemon. It's not just only that specific region. So like there are opportunities for you to get those early Pokemon, but to actually bring everything over would be pretty difficult in the modern day. I do know they tried a thing called like Pokemon Bank for a while, which was supposed to be like a one-stop hub for all of your Pokemon. Like any game could put into the Pokemon Bank or something like that, but I don't know if it ever like really worked out correctly. Like I can't remember any like real success stories following Pokemon Bank.
That's unfortunate. I feel like it would be a much bigger draw into the series if I could like pick up a particular game and then more easily move my party around into different games in the mainline series or different anthology games. So
that's just because you only want the original 150. I get it.
I mean, yeah,
Then
okay.
they couldn't give you these derpy starters from 4 through 8.
How many?
Hey, some of the starters are okay. We love Chimchar, the little fire monkey. He's awesome. Come on now.
He does sound kind of cool, but did they ever change it up from the water, grass, fire dynamic, or is it still that?
Nope.
Wow.
Still water, grass, fire.
They won't.
Dude, when I say that playing FireRed and LeafGreen is the exact same as playing like Gen 8, it's exactly the same.
That is absolutely incredible to me.
There is some higher production value, I guess. Even that's arguable because some of the like animations and stuff look like they're still out of 2005.
Right? Those 3D games look terrible, right? Like
that they do not look great. And there are new Pokemon. Some of them are cool. Most of them are not. But it really is almost the exact same game, which is why like playing this again was like, man, it is really cool to see how fun and fresh like the original game felt for the time and like reliving those memories. But it just reminds me of how little the series has evolved throughout the years.
it sounds like every time they launch a new mainline game, we're just gonna fire up FireRed again.
That's really the solution. I'm going to keep buying them. I'm going to be part of the problem. I bought the last one. I played it for about 4 gyms, and then I quit. And I was like, I don't, like, I have not enjoyed one of these in the last 3 generations. And yet here I am buying another one. Like, I'll never learn. It's fine.
Every time one comes out, the fan base gets up in arms. It's lazy. It's this. It's that, and then it sells more than the last one. And it just happens. I was looking at something the other day that was just comparing Game Boy DS sales of Pokemon games versus Switch, and it's not even fucking close.
Yeah,
like the Switch destroys it.
It really is insane. And like when you think about like the number of copies that like the DS sold, and how many people owned a DS. Like, those games didn't even sell as well as the Switch games.
And I have to assume people bought a DS for Pokemon. What else? I mean, what else do you have a Game Boy for?
That
Tell me one other good Game Boy game. Just name one.
Metroid Fusion. Thank you.
Yeah, whatever. Spin-off of something that's on another console.
Wait, is Monster Hunter a Game Boy game?
Monster Hunter was on DS, I think.
Okay.
It's been on a million things over the years. I don't know.
I mean,
where
yeah, it's on a lot.
I'm not sure that counts as a good Game Boy game or not. That's like the only other thing I've ever heard of someone playing on a Nintendo handheld in the last 10 years. So.
Your lack of Nintendo handheld knowledge is killing me over here. There's good games, I promise.
You say lack of knowledge. There's nothing there to learn. It's all... No. Golden Sun was really good. I remember playing that.
Oh, dude. God, I love Golden Sun.
What was the game on Game Boy Advance where you had to like kill vampires and how much light hit your screen actually powered you up so people played it outside, but you can't see outside because it was the Game Boy Advance? And,
I don't remember that at all.
I just remember that being like a cover story in EGM or something.
Man, that's incredible. Props to Nintendo for being at least a bit innovative. I don't think I've ever heard of another platform whose game might be designed around you going outside, but that's the hook for Pokemon Go too, right? Go outside, catch the Pokemon.
Yeah.
Go.
Well, Nintendo's whole thing
outside.
was understanding that like 15 years ago that the end user doesn't actually care how powerful your hardware is typically, and so creating consoles that don't make money is stupid. So they have a very different setup than say like Xbox and PlayStation, right? Their consoles aren't loss leaders, first off. And then secondly, like they aren't worried about the, cause it's people think about more powerful machines just being graphics and, there's other things there, but Nintendo is not going to try to make a, game where it needs 3,000 particle effects on the screen at once. It's just not going to do it. And it knows that it's not going to do it, and that's fine. It doesn't need to. Meanwhile, every new game that comes out on PlayStation, all everyone wants to talk about is like, look at the graphics. It's like, yeah, it's pretty, but does it suck? Because
Nintendo always tries to do something different and unique with their franchises, except for Pokemon. But every other franchise they always try and do something innovative and just new. And you see something like the Wii, and it's like no other company is doing what the Wii did. but like that thing sold gangbusters for all the casual people of the world, not necessarily your hardcore like I only play Call of Duty gamer, but
I bet there are people who only play Call of Duty on the Switch. Like I bet they exist. And
probably
and
those
just,
people are crazy,
yeah.
but probably.
I am so.
That seems like the worst way to play Call of Duty.
I'm sorry. You can play Call of Duty on the Switch now.
You can turn it on and pictures move.
It'll run maybe kind of.
That's so funny. Okay. All right. To bring us back here, or at least back to Pokemon, did you guys try Pokemon Go on your phones?
I did a little bit that one summer.
I still play Pokemon Go. Well, okay, when I say
Austin
still, I've played Pokemon Go in the last like year. I haven't played it in a little while, but I used to like go out with friends. Actually, me, Taylor, and one of my friends would go out. Like every Wednesday was like raid night, and we'd go around town for like an hour or two and just like catch a bunch of the like legendary Pokemon in raids.
But
like
was the
that game's come a long way from the beginnings of what it launched as.
I only remember it as like walk around town, find the Pokemon, but all you can do is fling Pokeballs at them endlessly, and I was like, this was the worst part of the game. Why would I do this? So
I was back in school that summer, and it was so funny because everyone in class just had that on their in their laps like the whole time. But it sucked because I would go to campus, and there's like 2 different gyms. There's Pokemon everywhere. It's awesome. And then I would go back home because I was living with my parents before when I went back to school. And there's like one Pidgey within a 5-mile radius of their house. I just couldn't play it at home. It was completely not an option.
That game has come a long way. Like now there's gyms, like all the like different hotspots around town are gyms, and you can like place a Pokemon in a gym. And if your team like your team can own a gym, right? There's 3 teams, red, blue, or yellow. Back to the original trio of games. And if your team has Pokemon in that gym, like you earn like coins that you can use to buy like more Pokemon space or like whatever other bonuses. But your team wants to like hold the gym, and then another team can come in and like collectively as a group attack that gym and take it over, and then everybody can place their Pokemon on it. And then like those gyms will sometimes hold raids, which are like usually legendary Pokemon, like a Mewtwo or a Zapdos or whatever. Since 150 purist over here.
Yeah, that's what'll get me outside. So,
and so like then you could like raid on that gym. So like a collection of like 10 or 15 people can all attack the gym together and take down the like raid boss, and then you all get a chance to capture it after. They've included pretty much every Pokemon now in it. Like it's got, I think, almost the full range of like 700 or 900 or whatever it is now.
Are the gyms just like algorithmically generated based on foot traffic or like high population?
You can submit you can like submit spots as like this is a landmark or like this is an important spot, and like it'll like generate either a Pokestop or a gym there. Gyms I find are usually like churches or like government buildings or like different like significant types of buildings, and then Pokestops are more like a restaurant, or like a fountain outside of a restaurant or something. It's not 100. Like I don't know the 100% the algorithm that generates these things.
Right.
Some of it is like user submitted. But I don't know what determines whether it's a gym or a Pokestop.
There were
not.
2 stories I'm remembering from that summer, and one was that like somehow the National Holocaust Museum in DC became a gym, and they were like, "Yeah, can you fucking not?"
Hilarious.
They were just like kids running all over the fucking front steps. And then the other one was, and this might not have been when it came out. This might have been more recent, but like Westboro Baptist Church's headquarters is a gym, and the community has like collectively decided not to oust the owner because they have like the gayest looking Pokemon at the gym, and so they're just like trolling them. So that stuff's kind of fun. I really love the community aspects, but no, I wasn't really into the game itself.
I remember that first summer. I remember watching the videos of like it was in like Madison Square Garden or some shit, or like Central Park or whatever. There was like a Snorlax or something that popped up, and like it was super rare, and like everyone like flocked to it. Or maybe it was like a Lapras or something. I don't know. It was like some like rare Pokemon that didn't appear often like popped up, and like you would just see like swarms of people running to catch it. Like stuff like that was wild.
So I want to ask about the player base. Now that the iPhone has emulators and we could just play the old mainline series on our iPhones, is Pokemon Go's player base going to be eclipsed by the emulator players? How many people do we think are actually emulating these games?
I think it's probably a pretty good number. I mean, Delta is the highest selling, quote selling, I guess, app on the App Store for a while. Like, I imagine most people are getting Pokemon.
Yeah.
I imagine that's like the first thing that people are gonna do is like, oh yeah, I want to get Pokemon.
It runs like 4 different systems, all these games, but I'm pretty sure 99% of people are just playing Pokemon.
It's the same, so does this mean that DS sales in the future are doomed? Does Nintendo really need to pivot away from their handhelds now that we can all just emulate the ones we actually want to play? Or
Well, I mean, Nintendo hasn't made a new handheld in a while. The Switch is just their handheld.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, are they just putting all their effort toward that now? They're not even worried about like the DS anymore.
Is the fact that Nintendo is not suing anyone evidence that there will never again be a Nintendo handheld console?
It is interesting that like there hasn't been some sort of crackdown from Nintendo on this. This seems like the thing that they would have done almost immediately. Like, no, like,
yeah,
they're just a company that feels very like opposed to emulation. They always have been. So it's interesting that they hadn't cracked down more on this. I'm not mad about it, but like it is kind of surprising to me.
Maybe hopefully they realize that all this will do is like give them a chance to capture some of the previous Pokemon fans, because like I don't know,
Right.
I don't know who's here to emulate. I mean, maybe Super Mario 64, but like I don't know. I would
not want to play that on a phone.
Right. Like Pokemon feels like the ultimate. I should just be able to play this on my iPhone kind of game, and that's what I imagine happening. And so what I'm really wondering is like, how long will it be until I can actually trade Pokemon with strangers on the street?
That is a good question. I don't know. I mean, you did it. You found a way to trade.
Yeah, I traded with myself. I mean, the answer is still never. Like, I just don't think it'll ever be a thing, right? Like, so that was a big aspect of these games, was being able to trade with other folks.
Oh, yeah.
Has anyone actually traded a Pokemon with someone they didn't know?
Oh, I did with literally 2 of my friends in elementary school, and I think that was it.
Yeah, I traded with friends and like family members back in the day a little bit, but not very often, and definitely not with people I didn't know. Though I will say in like Gen 4 and beyond, they added like a global trade center, so you could trade with people around the world. And I did do that a couple times.
Oh, that's interesting. That might actually work. But like, yeah, I don't think there's never been a moment where. And here's the other thing, right? You can imagine trading as like you would catch one, raise it for a bit, and then like set it off to a new owner for whatever reason. And I feel like it's just not something that ever happens, right? Like you're running around catching your exclusives and then immediately handing them off to someone.
Oh, yeah.
Or you're asking a friend for a favor. Hey, let's trade my Kadabra real quick so you can immediately give it back to me in its evolved form.
Right, that was always one of the things that I thought was really weird about the trading thing, because it's like the trading to evolve thing, and I understand why they did it, and it's to encourage that trading element, obviously, but it was always like I would just want my thing right back. Like I know you could trade me a Haunter, and I could trade you a Haunter, and we could both have a Gengar, but like I want my Gengar that I raised,
correct,
with like my stats and my things and my moves. Like why would I want yours? Like it always felt weird that that's how that resulted in.
One of the NPCs in the training center even says something along the lines of like, "Oh, I thought I was getting a Graveler and it became a Golem. Like, isn't that crazy?" I was like, "It fucking blows for the other guy." Like,
right? Like he gave up a tier 2 Pokemon, and you got a tier 3.
It's like, what did you trade him? I mean,
right. Like he got my Caterpie. Like I don't, Like,
yeah, obviously a level 2 Pidgey. I mean, what else would you trade it for?
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. So I'm asking this question because Austin's the one who's played like later generations. Was trading just a thing in the earlier generations, and this is a strategy they thought they were going to use to drive game sales? Because I understand the concept of 2 versions and exclusives. That makes a lot of sense. But this whole like trading Pokemon regularly thing, it's never taken off, right?
I mean, I will say all the later games do still have like 2 versions, and they all still had exclusive Pokemon and like Pokemon that you could only trade to evolve. Like that thing kept going throughout the evolution of the franchise. But I think what happened is once the global trading elements came into play, that stuff became a lot easier because you could just trade with anyone around the world. And the way that kind of worked is like you would put up a thing that you were willing to trade, and you would like put up what you wanted for it, and someone could like answer that and take the thing that they wanted, and like they'd be able to take their thing and send you the thing that you wanted in return. And like you would basically just like put something up for auction, and like somebody would come in and be like, yeah, I want that, and you want this thing from me, so here, we'll trade it. And so that made it a lot easier to do that, to do those things, to get all those exclusives. And at a certain point, it does get to a point where it's like, what is the reason of having these 2 games at this point? Other than to make money, of course.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's definitely the reason. But it's like, I always found the aspect of like in-person, like trading across your games super interesting, but just not something that I've ever seen like take off even in like the Pokemon community, right? Like, again, you're not going to raise your Bulbasaur halfway and then give it away in some exchange. Like, there's no equivalent trade for that. So
I also just think in the early games it was like harder because you had to have a link cable, and you had to like
it was harder, but that's what made it cooler. You had to go find the dude down the street, and like, you know, we could trade Pokemon.
Hey, yeah, you have a link cable? Yeah, let's set it up. Like, yeah, it's cool, but like nobody's gonna take the time to do it.
You guys had Game Boy Color, right? The purple one?
I had a Game Boy Pocket, and then with the yellow version, I managed to get a Game Boy Color.
Okay, so do you remember there was that weird sensor on top, and you couldn't use it to trade Pokemon, but you would use it to do the mystery item every day, and you could get like a doll for your bedroom or something?
It had like an IR blaster on it, yeah.
So I never understood. I mean, I guess the technology
was that in Gen 2?
Yeah.
I think that was in Gen 2.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I forgot to say that was in gold, but I guess the technology wasn't the same. Could they literally not trade Pokemon through the sensor?
Oh, I'm sure that was a very simplistic thing, yeah. So that was like an IR blaster that operates the same way that like your TV remote control, or at least your older TV remote controls work.
So if the other Game Boy just got any signal at all, it was like generate a random item?
Probably, yeah, almost certainly. It was... I could not tell you like the amount of data they have to transfer to do the Pokemon. I mean, not that much, but we're also talking about Game Boy Pockets and colors. That
right.
Very restricted things. And I mean, honestly, it's funny because the multiplayer aspect of the Game Boy is one of the harder things to emulate. Case in point, the Delta emulator on iPhone doesn't support it. You have to go get one that works on macOS. So yeah, I don't know. It's just the actual trading system and the connection, transferring real data between the two is very, very finicky, to answer your question.
But again, back to Nintendo being a constant innovator. Like, no game was doing that at the time.
Right.
Like, no game was trying to replicate that, like, trading card experience of, like, trading things with friends. No game was doing that at the time.
Oh, you're right. That is what it is. It's like, it's a trading card experience, yeah.
Yeah, it's that thing, and nobody else was even trying that. And yeah, it never really took off. And even in, like, the DS era where they had wireless capabilities and you could just trade wirelessly, I feel like it still never really took off. But at least they tried, you know? Unlike now where they don't try anything new ever. Nintendo, cough, Pokemon.
It seems like Pokemon's the thing that they just use as a cash cow so that then they can make like really crazy Zelda and Mario games.
Which, hey, I mean, if we can keep getting cool, crazy Zelda and Mario games due to Pokemon being the same, I'll take it. Like,
fair trade.
I'll go play Pal World or something and like get my like different Pokemon fix.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild is worth any price. All right, like
yeah. We'll take like bad Pokemon games for Breath of the Wild. That's a trade I'll be willing to make.
To kind of round out this discussion about how the games have changed, I'm curious, Austin, if like, does the AI ever get any less dumb as you go throughout?
Oh, yeah, good point.
In particular, I'm thinking you have some of these fights. Now, you'll come across the bug trainer with only a Kakuna. I think that's intentional free EXP. That one I'm less worried about than the ones that it's like, there's 3 Pokemon that all have moves that could hurt you. And instead, they just like lower your evasion 6 times in a row and die.
Right, like your rival fight and like your champion rival fight being one of the worst case offenders where like
Really?
if Alakazam just constantly spams Future Sight, it's like, well,
Oh yeah,
like free victory here. Like,
I only fought him once, but my champion rival fight was the first time I thought like someone was playing mostly intelligently almost the entire time.
well, it's entirely a toss up, and I think that's kind of to the point of like. I had to do the rival fight twice, and one time, right, I think Adam had a similar experience. Like, Alakazam was spamming Psychic and just destroying me. But then other times it was like, Future Sight.
which is just a worse delayed psychic, and he kept casting it, and I didn't understand.
And it was like, dude, it's not doing anything.
No, you're right. He really did mess up with his Alakazam. He threw it out there against Charizard and then did like whatever the barrier spell is that raises his defense.
Oh yeah.
Charizard isn't about to punch you. He's going to
Yeah.
flamethrower your face off. So
Yeah, I don't think the game's AI has ever really gotten to the levels of what it like should to be considered a compelling challenge. It maybe is a little better than what I remember playing these early, like playing through FireRed this time, because there were some times where I was like, are you really just gonna keep spamming the same like defense boost thing that isn't actually helping you? Like, okay.
yeah, I mean, the majority of the game, all of your opponents are definitely just randomly selecting their moves. There's a handful of like the gym leaders and maybe the Elite Four that actually have scripts behind them, but quite clearly every wild Pokemon is totally random. So
Oh yeah.
I did my rival fight in the Elite Four like 15 times because I was trying to do that, get a recording of it. And I got to the point where I was using the exact same moves every time because I wanted to see if anything I was doing would make him react differently. It didn't. It would just be sometimes he would use Psychic and sometimes he'd use Future Sight. And I could not figure out any reasoning to it. But I thought that was a good fight, though, overall. I really think the whole appeal of the Elite Four is that it is difficult because it's the only time where you have to fight like 3 or 4 or 5 fights in a row without being able to swap any Pokemon out. So even though you can heal up and stuff, like if you don't have a solid core of 6 that can, be versatile enough to kill like 5 different or is it only 4 or 5? Is he the 5th one or the 4th one?
he's the 5th one.
He's the
Okay,
fifth,
yeah. So 5 different parties of very different Pokemon. I think that's really where the only real challenge in the whole game is the
You
Elite
say
Four.
5 different parties of very different Pokemon, but Alakazam won a flawless victory over Rock Fighting type guy, followed by a flawless victory against Poison Ghost type girl. So, again, let's just go back to you have to catch an Abra at level 10. And
It is ridiculous that these third stage evolutions are just so much more powerful than everyone else, and half of them are locked behind a technology that doesn't exist anymore.
That doesn't exist and wouldn't really work well in like suburban America, right? Like you got to get your dad to drive you over to your friend's house so you can get Alakazam. Like I don't know.
It's an interesting concept, but yeah, there's definitely some flaws in it.
I'm sitting here, really ragging on my Alakazam. Did you guys have a particular favorite in your party that you used a lot, or did you feel like it changed up a lot for y'all?
My party was pretty balanced, I think, to like not have any real standout, which was maybe kind of part of my problem. But I mean, my Blastoise was always coming in clutch. I mean, it again, the third level evolutions are just so strong, and it was the only one of mine besides Nidoking, which ended up kind of becoming an HM guy the whole time anyway. Like, I was just strength, like, cut. Like, it was like, all right. So yeah, Blastoise probably did the most work for me.
I had 2 that I'd never really used before that I kept for pretty much the entire game as soon as I got them, and that was Sandslash and Farfetch'd. Sandslash was just a cut, dig, strength, something else machine that also happened to just kill everything in combat that way, so that was good. And then Farfetch'd was a monster because he's traded from that NPC, so he gets 1.5 experience automatically, which I don't know why they do that, but thank you. And he has a higher critical hit chance because he comes with an item. It's his little onion in his mouth. And then you can also give him, Slash that he picks up, which has a higher critical hit chance as well. So that dude became just a crazy strong Pokemon out of nowhere, and I did not expect it.
I think he's definitely
The crit monster.
Yeah, he's definitely supposed to be a bit of a joke, right? It's like a bird running around pretending to be a samurai, right? Like that's the bit. And I just love hearing about the fact that you turned him into a samurai and used
Yeah, pretty much.
You did the bit. Like you committed to the bit is what it was.
That's delightful. But the 1.5 experience thing is, again, them trying to make a thing happen that just like didn't happen. They were clearly invested in it happening, but it.
So did player traded Pokemon also get the 1.5?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
So that could be another reason that your Alakazam ended up doing like god tier damage.
I don't think you get. I don't think he gets the bonus if you get it back, though, because like one of the things that they imprint on the Pokemon is the original trainer.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, okay.
That is
So
true.
maybe
That is
that's
true,
why you guys would exchange Haunters and both get different Gengars. That's why they'll also level up faster.
That could make sense. Yeah.
I did so little of that, right, that I completely forgot the 1.5 experience boost was the thing. You know, shout out to that.
Yeah, I don't even think I knew that until you mentioned that, Adam. From all the Pokemon I've played, I don't even think I knew that.
It's one of the NPCs tells you that, right, Adam?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I talked to them enough, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Other than that, I mean, I was really enjoying my Hitmonchan experiment until I actually had to fight anything remotely difficult. I appreciated the versatility. Everyone online's like, oh, he has really strong defense. Dude, that doesn't matter. Because the best tactic in Pokemon is to have the faster Pokemon with a stab the opponent's weak against. And there's never a strategy better than that.
Correct. You want to be doing one-shots as often as possible.
Yeah, so it's like, yes, high defense. Doesn't matter.
Right.
If you're getting hit, you're already at a disadvantage. Like it's
Granted, like I've never dove super deep into like the competitive side of Pokemon, so I can't speak to like what somebody who plays this thing for like tournament
It's
play
degenerate.
would say about things.
It's so complicated. They have like 8 different tiers of rule set. It's a...
I've never been the type to get invested in that, either from like I don't want to engage in it myself, and I don't particularly care to watch other people do it either.
I guess part of why this game is fascinating to me is because you do have like the surface level, which is what we all experienced as a kid. Then obviously what a stab was. We didn't know what EVs and IVs and all that crap. But then we were going over the mechanics like just a few days ago, just talking about it. And Jeff, you were saying how on some level you just have to hope the Pokemon you catch are not like secretly inbred, because
it's incredible to me that they clearly made an intentional system behind Pokemon having individual values and then earning these EV things, which I already forget what they stood for. But they are like stat bonuses that are awarded to your Pokemon based on which Pokemon they defeat. So it's a system with set deterministic rules that you could chart an optimal course through. But I guess the effect is to give you a mostly random experience. It's like an RNG experience without it being RNG. I just don't understand why you'd spend so much time putting these rules together for the ultimate effect to be like, well, you just better hope your Pokemon doesn't suck.
Right. So. There's NPCs at the beginning that even say things along the lines of every Pokemon's different. Like even 2 Pidgeys will have different this and different that. And that's cool. I definitely get where they're going with that because they do want all of your Pokemon to feel like your Pokemon, like a unique thing. But at the end of the day, it's like you're saying, it just ends up being this really random, like hopefully the one you got isn't just worse than one you could have.
Yeah. So
is there? I mean, I guess the big question is there a way to easily check those values? Because I feel like that's always one of the things that you can't really see them. So it's like you won't really know. Like there are some people who I know, like when you look at like the competitive scene, will catch the same Pokemon like 17 times to make sure they get the right nature, the right IVs, the right EVs. Like they know how to find all this information, and it's like I'm not gonna do all that.
Yep.
Like that is not why I'm playing this game.
Right. So that's kind of my point to the like, okay, you're making a system that has clear rules that you could go through the arcane incantations to figure out and chart the optimal path for, but then like 99.999% of your player base isn't going to do that. So why is it not just, I don't know, more random? It's weird. It's weird. It makes me, knowing about the system makes me feel like I'm just missing out on things as opposed to it necessarily being a good system that makes my Pokemon feel unique to me, you know?
Yeah, a lot of RPGs from that time had hidden mechanics for sure, but I feel like Pokemon's are the most obscure and the most like prone to degeneracy. Because if you go play an old Final Fantasy, like there might be a couple things you could exploit here and there, but you're not going to try to like do the same fight 17 times to do it, you know, the randomly most powerful way. There's nothing like that. Whereas what you were just describing, Austin, is like, I feel like a Pokemon exclusive thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, I can't imagine anything being more disappointing in the world than like grabbing my level 60 Raichu and going up against someone else's level 60 Raichu, and he just wins every time because he didn't catch the bad one,
Right.
300 hours ago. It's like, talk about a crushing experience. So like, I don't know.
If there was an easy way to like actually see that stuff in game and like chart that stuff out easily, then it would maybe be a more interesting mechanic. But because it's like feels so obscured and like obtuse, it's like, well, it's just luck.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and something that I always found was really interesting, kind of talking about the gym leaders and stuff. Like, I always really liked that Giovanni was the 8th gym. I always thought that was a cool little twist.
That is a great twist. Now, he is Italian and head of the criminal organization, so that feels a little weird. But
I mean,
96 in Japan. I think we're lucky what we got.
yeah, Nintendo and their Italian stereotypes, right? So
they just like watch The Godfather or something. Like, yeah, let's do that. But I always really liked that. And I also always really liked that your rival was the champion and that they got there before you.
Yeah.
Like, I always loved that twist of the end where it's like you're fighting the Elite Four and you beat Lance, who seems like the 4th and final. And then it's like, but wait, there's more, like Billy Mays style.
I do like, you could pick up on this, right? If you check the statues at the beginning of every gym and see that the only reigning trainer is always your rival. Like, your rival
Yeah,
is
like
always...
he's always getting there before you. So then at that very end, like that's always been one of my favorite like final bosses in games, because I just love the twist of it being like, aha, he got there first. Like,
yeah, I really enjoy the back and forth with the rival, the way his party changes over time, how he's kind of like a benchmark for you to figure out whether you're leveling up at the right weight, and to be an example for like, hey, go get some different Pokemon.
I will say that regardless of the fact that you can kind of do it in all these different orders, I never felt confused. It was kind of like, well, I'll just pick a direction and wander in it. And there was always some avenue of advancement that way. So, I think it works.
and I think that's intentional. I think that that middle section, like, even if you look at it on the map, it's very like it's a cross, like with Saffron in the middle.
Yeah.
So it's like you kind of approach it however you want to approach it, and I think it works because all the levels are kind of the same. Like everyone's kind of in the right area where it's like it doesn't really matter which one you go to first. It's just whatever one feels the most natural to you.
Mm-hmm. And the world design's interesting in the sense that you'll come across stuff that you can't move and you'll have to come back later. But then all it really does is open up like new routes of transportation. Like, what is it? The Diglett Cave. You couldn't get to it the first time through because you have to cut down a tree, right?
Right.
But now you can like come back and use that as a shortcut to get back to like Pewter City or whatever. So there's kind of that sense of almost Metroid-esque opening things up, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And like, to your point, Adam, like going to Fuchsia City before fighting Sabrina is definitely what they intended, I think, design-wise. Because if you go down that route from Lavender Town, right, that route is so long and there are so many trainers. One of the complaints I had is that after beating Sabrina, then I went and fought all of these traders with like level 25 Pokemon. I was like, this is incredibly
Just
boring.
a waste of time.
Yeah.
Right now you're just like destroying everything and you're not getting any experience either. Yeah. So it's like,
Koga and Sabrina,
what's the point of this?
I feel like the only two you could reasonably mix up, though, because I'm just trying to think, like, how could you ever not do Erica the first of those four unless you purposely just didn't?
Like, you just skip the gym in that town, right? Because you do.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I think it would have to be almost intentional.
Yeah, you have to go to Celadon City, certainly, but you could just skip the gym. So.
Right, I mean, like, you can't unlock any of the other paths without Celadon first. But yeah, you could just skip the gym if you were, like, a crazy person.
But speaking about what order to do things in, I do love that it seems to come naturally back to you, like, arriving back in Palatown, right? Like, you've got most of the badges. You only have the one left, and you're like, oh, where was that? Oh, Viridian City, right? You do a literal loop. You go back through your hometown again. No one really seems to care, which disappointed me a little bit. And then you're back up to Viridian City, and, one of the earliest places you go in the game, you're now going to go off to do the final end segment. I do like the literal loop in the game. And like you were saying, Austin, Giovanni being the Viridian Gym Master is very cool.
It's a satisfying.
It's such an
Yeah.
It's such a neat thing where it's like the first thing you come to, like the first town that you get on your adventure is like, hey, you can't do this thing yet because the gym leader's out, but like, come back here, you'll have to do it eventually. And then once you've done everything else, it's like, well, there's only one thing left to do. And you get there and it's like, oh, that's why the gym leader's been out, because he's been like leading a criminal organization and like trying to steal Pokemon everywhere.
Correct. He was trying to take over the whole region, I guess, and my amazing child skills defeated him, so let's go do it again.
Okay,
Right.
So then he lost 3 Poke battles and gave up all of his skills.
You know what? If some punk kid ruined all of your world domination plans, you would just retire too.
Just turn into a hippie, yeah.
That's not entirely true, because I think Team Rocket is the main enemy in Johto too, and I think Giovanni is still leading them. So I think they just leave Kanto. They're like, fine, this stupid 12-year-old is going to thwart our plans in Kanto. We'll go to Johto instead.
And then he gets ruined by a different 10-year-old.
A different
We have
kid.
to get ahead of the next preteen who's coming to.
Unless you watch the anime, then it's just Ash constantly thwarting Team Rocket. Did I say Team Anime?
I mean, they are the most anime part of that anime, right? So
They really are.
I do want to talk about still. Do you guys know how Calm Mind works for Alakazam?
That's the one that boosts like special attack and special defense, maybe?
Yeah, it's so not fair. It is. I am not kidding when I say, like, you start the battle with Alakazam, and the other trainer always starts with a weak Pokemon, right? Or typically one of their weaker ones. So you just go Super Saiyan, right? You just raise your special attack and defense, then their attack bounces off of you. You use Recover to just heal that all anyway, and then you one-shot them with Psychic, and it's just... You demolish most of the Elite Four with a single Pokemon, and it's just beautiful. I just want you to know that happened.
When I tell you I played this game like I was still 7, I got rid of pretty much every stat boosting ability and just like only used attack. Like anything with that does damage, like that's the only skills I pretty much had in my entire party all the time.
The problem is that all of the other stuff sucks most of the time. Like,
You're right.
It's only good like in the very rare cases like Calm Mind.
or if you know you're going to be fighting a fight where your Pokemon might go through multiple other Pokemon, then it makes sense to boost your attack for that. But in the course of a single like one-on-one Pokemon fight, you're almost never coming out ahead than just using the damage thing first and killing it quicker.
Correct. And like you have to spend so much time in those caves, right, where repel doesn't really work, and you have to fight so many battles. You're going to need Pokemon with enough like moves to actually get you through the cave, right?
Right.
So yeah,
Dude, and
stat
some of that-
boosters are super weak in this game.
And it's you only get for move slots.
Yep.
So it's like if you run out of PP on the things that do damage, then it's like, well, yeah, guess I'm out of luck here.
And some of the stuff toward the end with lower accuracy just killed me. Like I learned Hydro Pump, used it 3 times, missed twice, and then replaced it with something. I just didn't. Ugh.
I liked those moves, but yeah, I definitely like Thunder and Hydro Pump were always like a coin toss because I was like, oh god, all right. Like,
And it
here we
feels
go.
cheap to just reload state when I miss. So I didn't want to do that. But I was ultimately just doing a more roundabout way of doing that. So I should have just...
You just took longer to reload.
yeah, pretty much.
That's really funny. Yeah, for once I saved scummed very little in this game, but again, that's entirely due to the Charizard Alakazam combo.
Yeah, you didn't have to save scum. You just obliterated it.
Yeah. It's-
The Alazard combo or the Charakazam.
Charakazam. Oh, yes.
The Charakazam.
How do we merge them? The ultimate.
Dude, I'm sure it's happened in one of these, right?
Well, eventually Pokemon can like Mega Evolve, and I think Alakazam and Charizard both have Mega Evolutions. So like,
Yeah, and there's
They, like-
even variants.
they get like even more super powered than what they already
I
are.
saw one where he was Blue Fire. So,
Yep. That's a Mega Evolve. Charizard gets 2 Mega Evolutions. He gets like a Mega Evolution X and a Mega Evolution Y.
Oh my god.
I don't actually know what the difference is, to be honest. I mean, one's black, one's red. I don't really know what their stat differences are.
Are they
but-
exclusive to the different X and Y types or versions?
Yeah, I think they are.
Okay.
I'm sure they are. I don't remember for sure, but I'm sure they are.
I'm so glad we played Leaf Green and Fire Red. Just really read that.
I want to go back and finish Black 2. I think that's the only one. I said I played one of every gen. I think I never played Black 2 or White 2. I played Black, I think, but I never played the like sequel that was in the same generation. So I do want to go back and finish that one and like see. But yeah, playing the little bit that I have of it just reminded me that it's like exactly the same game as FireRed. Like it's exactly the same game.
That is so funny. So funny. They never added a triple type Pokemon, right? Because that's what I would need for my Charizard, a flying fire psychic type.
I don't think there's any that are 3.
Yeah.
I will say they did add like some of the things they did add was like a like triple battle. Like you fight like 3 Pokemon at once or something, or like a horde of Pokemon. Like you could do that. But it's just like the same mechanics, just like now there's more Pokemon on screen.
That also sounds super fun, but that'll just boil down to who has a Pokemon with Earthquake and
exactly. Like, do you have Surf? Okay, well, it's over.
So were the team fights in this one just kind of an afterthought, like that they just introduced with the remake? Because there's only like, there's 4 in the whole game, maybe. And they're a joke, and they never have more than just the first 2 Pokemon they start with.
The funniest one is the Squirtle Charmander combo.
Oh yeah, that one's great. They're much more prevalent in the like Gen 3 proper games, like Sapphire and Ruby. I feel like they're pretty common in those. Because that was a thing that they were trying to introduce in Gen 3 was like this double battle mechanic, but it never really made its way into FireRed and LeafGreen much, because I think they just didn't want to like re-envision how all the trainer battles worked. Like,
so they just found the few that were already standing next to each other. And
yep. And we're like, yeah, I guess we'll make these a double battle. That sounds fine, right?
Yeah, you can fight both of them. Yeah, I think the thing that killed my Kadabra the most was my Golem using like Magnitude or Earthquake in duo battles.
Yeah.
Dumb stuff like that. Which, fun fact, I didn't realize you can target any of the 4 Pokemon on the field with, I think, any ability. So you could just kill your other Pokemon if you wanted to.
Oh, interesting.
You could.
I don't know why. It seems like just a great misclick system.
Well, there are some moves. Like I know Eevee has a move called Helping Hand that'll actually boost the attack of your other party members.
I mean, that's cool.
The other like Pokemon
but then we're back to all stat boosting moves suck, except for Calm Mind. Calm Mind is amazing.
Exactly. I got rid of Helping Hand almost immediately.
The like half hour I played of Emerald before we started doing this, I came across a double fight, and it was 2 of the Pikachu ripoffs that are like the plus and the minus, and they both just used Helping Hand on each other until they died. It was. I guess it was a good preview for what I was about to experience, but
helping each other into a grave. That's funny.
Yes.
That should tell you that the AI just is never really
no.
It's like that for pretty much the entire time you play Pokemon. It's just it's what they do.
That's what I mean by I want a hard Pokemon game. I want a Pokemon game that like has all of your trainers behave more like the rival, and then like actually like scripts people well. And I don't know, maybe they don't do that because that would just be too hard. Like you can't make it hard because then it would just be terrible. I don't know.
I think the hardest Pokemon games are probably like Pokemon Coliseum and like Gale of Darkness or whatever.
I looked into Coliseum and then I found out you couldn't just like import your own Pokemon into it. Like it wasn't a true Pokemon Stadium sequel. So then I was like, oh, I don't care. Like
It is not. That one is actually very like heavy story based. Mm-hmm. It's like very much like more of a traditional RPG than what Stadium was. There's like Pokemon that are like covered in darkness, and you have to like purify them to catch them and stuff. Like it was an interesting game.
Oh man, the Pokemon Stadium announcer, man, that is a memory we just unlocked. I forgot about.
That my like core memory for Pokemon Stadium is just constantly like playing the mini games over and over again.
Those are pretty fun too.
I love those mini games.
Whichever one had you like devouring sushi with
Lickitung?
Yeah, there you go.
Never ran into a Lickitung in the entirety of FireRed, I don't believe.
An opponent had exactly one, but that's it.
I don't even remember that opponent. I wonder if I missed them somehow.
You could have. Who knows where it was?
Of all the 150 Pokemon, I feel like I only even saw like 80 of them.
Like, it'll tell you in your Pokedex. Like, ask. Oh, yeah. It'll tell you.
One final thought about the difficulty. Before the Elite Four, is there a single person you fight that has 6 Pokemon?
No.
I think that's part of it.
Oh, wait. Wait, I think there is
I think it's only the rival.
I think there's a fisherman between Cinnabar and Palatown that might have
Has
six
Magikarps?
Magikarps. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
It could only be 5, but
Pokemon is so stupid.
It makes sense early because you don't have 6. I get that. But halfway through, it's just like, why does this trainer of this gym, like supposedly the best poison fighter in the world, just have 4? Why? I don't.
Guess what, guys? You won't believe it, but not a single Pokemon game has ever had trainers with 6 Pokemon outside of like a select 2.
good lord. Do the Elite Four even have 6, or is it only 5?
No, I think all the Elite Four only have 5. I think
Jesus
only your
Christ.
rival has
So,
6.
I mean, that's why you won, right? You were the first genius to realize you could use all 6.
Like, man, if you use 6 slots, it's so much easier.
Oh, you know what? They just don't want to have to level them up again. All right, they already did it once. They're too lazy.
Yeah. They don't need an HM Pokemon. They just sit in their like. They just like sit in their room all day, so they don't need an HM Pokemon to run around with. So they only need 5.
It just turns out you're the first autistic child in this world, and so you're the first one who shows up with 6 level 50s, and it's like, what now? So
they're just like, wait a second, you can do that? Like,
no,
You're the first kid to see like numbers in his sleep. The 6 haunted you for too long.
child prodigy, man.
yeah, and guess what? In 8 generations, not a single Elite Four or gym has figured out that 6 Pokemon is the key to victory.
It's just crazy because I think that would actually make it more challenging because you truly have to think about your full party instead of just like, well, as long as the first 3 can kill 5, then we're good. Like,
Yeah. Nope, they've never done it. They've never. I mean, right? I'm sure like the champions of those other games have 6, just like your rival has 6.
Right.
But like for most of the other games, most of the opponents still only rock like 4 for gyms and like 5 for the Elite Four.
and I wondered if maybe it was because they thought it'd be weird if, there's only so many rock types. So did Brock need to have like 3 Geodudes? It's like, okay, well, one guy has 6 Magikarps, so why not? Like,
Frickin' Bruno and the Elite Four has 2 Onyx. Is like, why? It's
It really is strange, and I wonder if that's a limitation of the original 150. Like they only had so many typings. But in the later games, it's like, okay, what's your excuse? You have 700 freaking Pokemon to pick from.
Yeah,
like
do something interesting. Be interesting, and they just refuse to. So
oh, you know what? In Gen 6, they introduced fairy types. That's probably the biggest evolution that they made in the situation.
I love how it took until the 6th generation for them to be like, you know what? Psychic types are overpowered. Maybe.
Maybe we should have something to try. I don't even think it's psychic that it's mainly effective against. I think it's mostly dragon.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
That's-
Maybe I'm thinking of
Dragon types are also super overpowered, but because the only thing that hurts them is other dragons.
what are the dragons in the original 150? Is it just the Dratini family?
It's those
I think
3.
so. I think that might be
It might be. I don't know. Does Aerodactyl have a dragon type, or is he?
I don't.
He might be
think so.
flying and rock or something.
I think he's just flying and rock. Yeah.
That's very strange that there's a whole type for one. Well, I guess it's 3 Pokemon, but it's one, in its evolutions.
And you have to get them by gambling. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's really the only way to find them is just through the casino.
Again, it's just to wear down, build those habits of like, yeah, it's okay to pay money and not always get what you want. Go buy our Pokemon cards.
If you want to use dragon types only and you're restricting yourself to first gen Pokemon, the only options are Dratini, Dragonair, and Dragonite.
Wow.
It's kind of like what we talked about in the Final Fantasy episode, Austin. When you let creatives do something, you will sometimes just end up with some weird creations, and that's all right. I think that's preferable to it being this really like hard line, like mathematics, like based system where everything was perfect, right? You gotta let the creatives have the room to wiggle around, and that's why you get awesome stuff like Charizard, and then you have to settle for. I'm trying to think of the dumbest Pokemon in this game.
Grimer.
Is it not Magikarp? I mean, his Pokedex entry is literally
that's fair.
the most pathetic Pokemon in the world. It says that.
Magikarp is definitely that like thing that is specifically designed to be like, here's your really stupid thing, and now here's the really awesome thing that comes.
I get it. So the intentionality behind it like eliminates him. So what's the actual dumbest one that they tried with?
Jinx.
Jinx? Did you say Jinx?
I don't know. It just looks stupid.
I also hate Jinx.
Jinx has got some questionable.
That also might be another offensive thing that Nintendo's just like, we're Japanese, we didn't realize it was
true.
offensive.
I didn't think about that. Yeah, good God.
The black face and the
That's
big
some
lips.
Mr.
It's
Popo
just like,
shit right there.
Hey,
It really is some
it is.
Mr.
She's
Popo.
literally purple in the remake, so yeah.
That's true. Yeah, they had to change her color because it's just
They
straight like
figured it
blackface.
out. Good for them.
Oh my god.
Somebody was like, "Hey, guys, can we not do this, please?" Like,
Then what's,
I know you're Japanese. I know you don't know any better, but like, I promise you, this is not
They
good.
can-
Then you have a Pokemon that's a computer program, but you can also only get through gambling.
Oh, Porygon.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
forgot
Porygon.
about that guy. Yeah.
The problem with Porygon is he takes so much. I mean, he's like 9,999 coins. Like, no thanks.
You gotta get them all, Austin. What are you doing, man?
He's useless.
You gotta get them all.
Possibly do.
That's something I've never done. In all the Pokemon games I've played through my entire life, I've never even attempted to complete the Pokedex.
All right.
That has never been something that has like appealed to me.
I did it as a kid. It's the only time I've done it. So
Never appealed to me to complete the Pokedex. I'm very much with Pokemon. Like, I want to beat the gyms, I want to beat the Elite Four, and then I'm good. Call it a day.
Well, I think we've said about all there is to say about these two games. What are you guys' final recommendations to the masses here?
it is. You should, if you loved Pokemon as a kid, you should definitely go get the emulator and play it on your phone. It's totally a great nostalgia trip and is the perfect thing to replace all of your TikTok time, or God forbid you're playing mobile games right now. Please stop. Just go get the emulator and play Pokemon instead.
Yeah, I definitely had a great time going back to it. It was a great like blast from the past. Like, I really enjoyed playing through old Pokemon, and it just reminds me of how much Pokemon has not changed and how you should just play this old one because it's the best version of Pokemon. So go back and play that one. It's a good time. Don't play any new ones. Okay.
I'd probably echo both those sentiments. There were moments playing this where I was like, I could not recommend someone actually go back to this. There's just not enough here. But there really doesn't need to be. Between the nostalgia and just like the fun, creative game design, the fact that everything doesn't make sense isn't that huge a deal. And like you said, at the end of the day, this is such a better way to spend your off time than whatever else you could be doing on your phone. So play it.
Play it at 2 times speed though. So much.
Nah, you
so
don't
much
need
faster.
that. Listen to those beautiful 8-bit soundtracks.
The soundtrack is really good.
Yeah,
No
slow
doubt.
it down
But
occasionally because the music is amazing.
It really is some of the best game music ever.
And you know, it's even got life lessons for you. The best advice I ever got about working in the corporate world is that email is just turn-based combat.
That is shockingly true.
Well, thanks for listening, everyone. We had a really great time revisiting these old games.
If you want to hear more, you can find us at the Games Gone By podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are sold.
And you can follow us on all the major social media platforms at the Games Gone By podcast.
Thanks again. We'll see you next time.